stay sitting far away from you.
Do something that's around. It's a pleasure.
It is.
Great. Great. That's what we're here for. That is what we're here for.
We do have a quorum so far. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is Kate not here?
No, Kate's sick too. What, Mary?
Anybody know who's here?
Hi, Robin.
Hi.
I would suggest you don't reach over and
Yeah,
go under.
I think so. No.
Should be a power outlet for you. It's not.
And we got it.
Hi, how are you?
You just need a fishing pole.
Yeah.
Hi, Robin. Hi, how are
Do
you?
not attack me. Thank you.
Hopefully it started the recording at all.
No temptation.
Getting down,
Hey, what do you-
getting down there is not bad, getting up is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Why are you doing kneeling in front of him?
He's a god to me. He's somebody I worship.
I forgot to tell you his middle name is Grace.
Right.
All right.
Downstairs to me is the second one and the
Are you using this charger?
It's attached to his computer. It's his charger.
I just need a little juice. No, that plug. I just need that
this
lightning one. Yeah.
This one, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't know which one you were playing. A little short.
That's all right.
I just look at it like this. I'm good.
Prop it up on your name tag. Your name
Tell you
tag.
what, once you
That's okay.
that one, no, this-
Good evening and welcome to the City of Auburn study session for February 27th, 2023. Call this meeting to order. This meeting is being held both virtually and in person. Hannah, will you please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Jayrosh,
I'm here.
Councilmember Baggett.
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Excused.
Councilmember Brown,
Here?
Councilmember Malinga,
Here.
Councilmember Rakes,
Here.
Councilmember Troutman-Well.
Excused. Thank you, Hannah. I see we have no reports or presentation under announcement reports and presentation section. We will now move into items for council discussion. Item on the agenda this evening, we have two items, and they are on community wellness items. They will be chaired by Vice Chair Cheryl Rakes. Cheryl Rakes, take it over.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First, we have the community wellness discussion item for the 2022 CAPER. So Director Tate will be presenting that to us tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Rakes. I'll turn it over to Community Services Manager Joy Scott for this presentation.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for having me this evening. For the record, my name is Joy Scott, and I am the City of Auburn's Community Services Manager. And I am happy to be here tonight to talk about the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report that the city will be submitting to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is a report on our 2022 achievements and accomplishments for our CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funding. So when I'm before council, typically there's a few different pots of money that I'm here to talk about. For our Community Development Block Grant work, we'll actually be talking about two different pieces of funding this evening. So we'll be talking about our direct entitlement, Community Development Block Grant funds, which in 2022 was just under $600,000. Those funds support a number of activities that we'll be doing a deeper dive on tonight, including our housing repair program. And we also will be talking about our CDBG CV dollars, which was HUD likes to refer to them as a one-time, but they came through in two different allocations. So it was actually a two-time amount of funding, totaling $913,002. That was money that could only be used to prevent, prepare for, or respond to the effects of coronavirus in our community. And those dollars had a little bit different kind of presentation and rules than our normal entitlement did, and allowed us to do some unique things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do with this source of funding. So we'll be chatting about those funds as well as our regular entitlement this evening. One of the things to note, which you may have seen in the report in your packet, was that we have fully expended those CB funds, and we've done so well in advance of the timeline that HUD set out as minimum required expenditure timelines. So the Community Development Block Grant provides grants, annual grants to the City of Auburn based on a formula. The projects have to align with one of HUD's national objectives. For the City of Auburn, we tend to really only focus on the low to moderate income benefit national objective, as the others don't tend to be applicable in our community as much. Projects have to be eligible under HUD's guidelines, and they have to principally benefit low and moderate income persons. So that's folks who are earning under 80% of area median income. The CAPER, the document that we'll be talking about this evening, is an annual report, basically. It provides an overview of the progress that we made in carrying out our goals for the prior year, and also the progress that we've made towards our 5-year strategic plan goals that we laid out in our 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan. So in the document itself, you will have seen that it lists percentages, both of progress towards the 1-year goals that we established and our overall percentage progress towards the 5-year goals that we established that the council adopted back in 2020. There are a number of administrative requirements that we have to conform to for HUD, and you typically see me in front of you at 2 of these points in our administrative process. One is the annual action plan that lays out our plan for how we will be spending our following year's entitlement. So I was before council in November of 2022, and the council took action in mid-November on our 2023 annual action plan. And then our consolidated annual performance evaluation report is due within the first 90 days following our program year expiration. So we have to submit it to HUD by the end of March. There are a number of eligible activities for our Community Development Block Grant funds, and some of these we tend to use every year, and some of them don't make as much sense for our annual allocation just because we don't have as large of an entitlement award as some other communities. So some of the types of things that we can do is acquisition of real property, public facility ADA improvements, site preparation. We can use up to 15% of our annual allocation to go towards public services, which is really just human services. Home rehabilitation, which we do take advantage of, economic development activities, microenterprise assistance, and of course our program admin to help support the work that it takes to oversee these programs and actually manage the funds. Some of these items, especially things like acquisition of real property, when we have an annual entitlement of around $500,000 or slightly above, it just doesn't make sense to use our funding for that because the cost of acquiring property would take up such a large proportion of our annual award. For the CDBG CV, our coronavirus funds, we actually had some really unique rules that we took advantage of at the City of Auburn. So in our regular entitlement, there's a cap on public services of 15%, like I mentioned. For these one-time funds, these CV funds, HUD said that there would be no cap on public services. So we actually put about 94% of our award towards public services in order to respond to COVID in the community. We could use them for things like food access, childcare assistance, eviction prevention, health services, career navigation. Funding could also be used for economic development activities, but at the time that we were allocating these funds, the city had identified some other funding sources to be used to support small businesses and economic development in the community. So the majority of these funds were made available for a human services response to coronavirus. In 2022, you'll see in the full report that's in your packet, the CDBG funds, our regular entitlement funds that we had supported our housing repair program, sidewalk ADA improvements on 9th Street Northeast, so funding curb ramps being added at the intersections of 9th Street Southeast and K Street Southeast, and 9th Street Southeast and I Street Southeast. And that is a typo in the slide where it says Northeast. We also supported a rental assistance program, the Housing Stability Project. We funded fair housing services and supported planning and administration costs that helped to cover city staff time. We also continued to spend down our COVID reallocations for 2022, supporting childcare services, job training, and behavioral health services. Our coronavirus funds in 2022 supported eviction prevention services, childcare services, and career navigation services. We had also previously expended of that $913,000 funds that went towards COVID testing and treatment for low to moderate income Auburn residents, rental assistance, and food access for seniors. Across both of our funding sources, I highlighted some of the numbers that you'll see within the report in this presentation. So some of the high-level things that we accomplished through those funds were that 96 residents across 62 households were supported in our housing repair program with rehab of their existing units. 241 residents received fair housing education and assistance to address housing issues that they were facing. 72 young adults experiencing homelessness were provided with behavioral health services. 2 Auburn residents that were impacted by COVID with job loss were provided with job training and placement services. 121 residents received rent assistance preventing eviction, and 720 Auburn residents benefited from the sidewalk ADA improvements. You will see that some of these numbers are a little bit lower than numbers that you've seen previously, things like the job training and placement services and the behavioral health services. That is because our contracts were extended through the first half of 2022 to allow those contracts to be fully expended. So that's just the numbers of folks that were served in 2022, not taking into account the full number of folks served in 2021 and 2020 when those contracts originated. included some of the high-level demographics that you see in the CAPER report, just to give you a picture of across all of the programs served where we're collecting that demographic information for program participants, kind of the trends that you see of who's receiving services. So while CDBG funds can be used for folks up to 80% of area median income, we in our programs that we have funded have prioritized residents that are extremely low income or low income, so up to 50% of the area median income. So you'll see that 43% of the folks served across all of our CDBG funded programs were extremely low income, so under 30% of AMI, and 57% were low income, or that 31 to 50% level. Just to give you some kind of specifics about what that looks like in our area, for one person and for a one-person household, the 0 to 30% AMI maximum is $27,200 annual income, and at that 31 to 50%, that would be an annual income of $45,300. So you'll see here that we have a breakdown of individuals served by race and ethnicity data. This is categories that HUD requires us to use in our demographic forms, so it sometimes doesn't always line up with how folks self-identify. So you will see that there are a number of people captured in the other multiracial category, and typically that's because the phrasing, the wording that HUD requires us to use isn't always a great fit with how folks are identifying when they complete an intake form. You'll also see a breakdown of folks who identify as Hispanic or Latino as well. In the 2022 individuals served, about 83% of households did not have somebody with a disability, and 17% of folks served did have a disability or had somebody in their household with a disability. And you'll see that just under half of the folks served across all of our programs in 2022 were limited English speaking. And a lot of the numbers in that particular category are specifically tied to our fair housing services, which provided fair housing education and case management supports for folks from the African diaspora. I wanted to provide a highlight of accomplishments within our housing repair program for 2022 because we set aside such a significant portion of our community development block grant funds to support the housing repair program. I think it's always a good opportunity to just look back and see what we were able to do with those funds in the previous year. So as I mentioned, we served 96 residents across 62 households in 2022. And there were 20 children in those 62 households served. So you'll see that we have a number of households with seniors, with folks with disabilities, but it's also helpful to remember that a lot of the households that we're seeing are families with young children in them. The breakdown between households, household incomes, 28 of those 62 households were extremely low income, so under that 30% AMI. We had 49 of the 62 households with somebody age 60 plus, 33 households had somebody with a disability, and 45 had a female head of household. And the average age of home stayed pretty consistent this year as it was the last 2 years, which is about 45 years. So the average home age that we see is built in 1977. One of the common questions that we get is what type of repairs, and again, I apologize, it looks like there is a typo on this slide. These are the most common repairs from 2022. A lot of the repairs we see in cycles, so we typically see a lot of requests for things like furnaces and roofs in October and November as folks try to turn on their heat for the first time or as the rainy season begins. So we kind of go in waves in the housing repair program of what types of repairs we see. And it changes quite a bit from year to year, although the overall list tends to remain the same. We do see the number of repairs requested in each of these things really shift quite a bit. So the prior year, we saw a lot more requests for ramps and stair replacements. The year before, we had a pretty significant number of furnace replacements and repairs. And it just kind of shifts from year to year based on a number of factors that we see within the program. But you can see that in 2022, the number one request that we received was for plumbing repairs. This doesn't take into account the number of repairs within those categories. So you'll see that we had 16 households that needed plumbing repairs. Within that, they might have needed repairs to their kitchen sink and needed a bathtub to shower conversion. So there might be multiple requests within that particular category that aren't necessarily each counted individually. And I wanted to share just some before and afters so that you can see the typical types of repairs that we're doing and what it looks like when housing repair goes into a home, what it looks like before, and what our clients see as an end result. So as you'll see, a number of these do highlight that plumbing request because that was our most common repair request that we received in 2022. This is a bathtub to shower conversion of somebody who has a disability and was really struggling to be able to use his shower. So you'll see that this improvement allowed them to more safely access their bathing facilities in their home. This is a before and after of where there had been pretty significant water damage, and our program was able to come in and help replace ceiling panels, replace some of the insulation that was behind it, and address prior water damage that had occurred. We also try to address pest intrusion into a household. So while we're not typically able to do kind of maintenance activities, so take care of pests on a regular basis, we can help address structural issues in the home that are leading to pest intrusions, and we can also do kind of a one-time support to help address infestations if they are present. So this is a repair, relatively simple repair that took place that ends up having a big impact in whether or not somebody is dealing with, for example, rats in their home. This is a repair that encompassed subfloor, flooring, and a toilet. There had been extensive water damage that had made the floor incredibly unsafe. And the toilet was pretty much unusable at this point. So we were able to come in and replace sections of subfloor, replace the flooring, and also replace their fixtures to make that more usable for them. This is one that encompasses both kind of safe entry and also weatherization. So the client's entryway had single pane windows. There wasn't a lot of protection from the elements with the door that they had. It wasn't well sealed. It was allowing moisture into the home. And it also just wasn't the most secure entry for them. So we were able to replace not only the entryway door, but of course the windows on either side of it to make it more secure, safe, and also more weatherproof. An option that we had last year for a client that's not one that comes through very frequently, but we wanted to highlight because it was a unique situation, is rather than a tub to shower conversion, a tub to an accessible tub. So this is a walk-in tub where the door fully opens to allow somebody to enter. And rather than requiring a space where they have to stand in order to bathe, this allows somebody to sit really safely. The chair that you see that was in their tub in the before picture was really not a safe solution for them to be able to bathe. It moved quite a bit, and because of the curve in the tub, it was creating a pretty significant hazard. So we were pleased to be able to find an accessible tub that was in our program budget. So to give you a sense of what the 2023 calendar year will look like for the Community Development Block Grant Program, we currently have our caper out for public comment. So that went out on February 15th, and it will be closing on March 2nd. So we're currently accepting comments from the community if folks have feedback on our report. We'll be submitting our 2022 caper to HUD in mid-March. And typically our grant agreement for the year is signed somewhere between April and June, really. But our award amounts were actually released just a few hours ago, earlier today. So we anticipate that our grant agreement will be signed a little bit earlier in March of this year. We'll be conducting our public engagement process for 2024 planning of our annual action plan, starting in about August, maybe July, depending on what our public meeting schedule looks like. And we'll be drafting our annual plan for next year in October to bring back to council in October and November of this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council?
First off, Joy, I just have to say, your reports are always gratifying for me to hear them, see the good work that we're doing in our community for the residents in our community. Something that I'm proud of, and I think our city should be proud of too. Helping to prevent homelessness by making these minor repairs, keeping people under cover, making sure they're safe in their homes. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. Just a question, and I noticed the workforce training and navigation was kind of small this year, and I think you mentioned that. Was it because of the state of the economy, or there were just other priorities?
So it's actually just based on timing. So that particular contract had been almost fully expended by December of 2021, and they only had about 1/10 of their contract remaining to fully spend down in the first quarter of 2022. So they had previously served a much higher number of folks. It was through a contract with Orion Industries in Auburn, but based on the amount remaining that they had coming into 2022, they only had funding to serve 2 individuals under that program.
Okay. Thank you, and sure appreciate your report.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the feedback on our housing repair program in particular, and I'll definitely be sharing it with our housing repair team.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Rakes. Joy, thank you very much. This was a very good presentation. I've got a couple of questions. Following up on his question, how do we do the job training and placement services? Do we pay Orion for the services, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so for that particular contract, we held a competitive application process where agencies applied to the city to provide services that were responsive to coronavirus. And we received applications from a number of nonprofit agencies. Orion was one of them. And that particular contract was awarded through a council process back in 2020. So we utilize a subrecipient agreement is what HUD refers to it as. So we contract with a nonprofit agency and they provide the services and we reimburse them for the cost of those services. So it's very similar to our human services grants process, just a little bit more kind of tracking and administrative overhead for the agencies because it is that federal funding.
Okay, thank you. I got one more question if nobody else has. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
My next question is we've got 62 households that you served, and were they all, was it their own homes or were they rentals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I should have specified that. So our housing repair program only serves homeowners in Auburn. So our program serves homeowners that are under 50% AMI, who have owned their home for at least a year, who are going to be remaining in their home for at least the next year. And we are able to serve folks in mobile manufactured homes as well as single-family stick-built homes, but it is only for homeowners.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, council? Councilmember Baker?
Joy, that last chart you showed up there that showed the timeline across there, I noticed that we went from 2022 and into 2023, but what other things are we planning from in 2023 that may not be shown on that timeline?
So the council adopted our 2023 annual action plan in November of last year, and the activities that are included in that plan include additional sidewalk improvements on 5th Street Northeast, supporting an eviction prevention program, the Housing Stability Project, our housing repair program, and also microenterprise assistance services. So providing small businesses that have 5 total employees or fewer, including the owner, in Auburn, or folks who are interested in starting a business, providing both technical assistance and support to them as well as mini grants. So those are the activities that we'll be undertaking this year that aren't laid out on this particular chart.
Probably look forward to hearing more about that as your next report.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I have a question. So on your housing program, do you do it like first come, first serve, whoever gets their application, or is there a prioritize repairs that come first?
We do prioritize as applications come in based on the urgency of repair, but it's not necessarily of whether or not you will receive services, just how quickly we are responsive to services. So when somebody applies, we try to respond to urgent life safety issues as quickly as we can, while still remaining in good standing with the administrative requirements that HUD sets out for the program. So we prioritize things like if somebody doesn't have working bathroom facilities or running water, or if they have, perhaps a broken door that is creating some kind of immediate safety issues. And then we have kind of a prioritization process laid out in our procedures, just based on the severity of the repair. So if we have 2 applications come in at once and one of them has an issue that is more significantly impacting life safety, that's the repair that we would move forward on first before moving forward on the other.
Thank you. Any other questions, council? Thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful. Second, we have resolution 5700 with Director Tate will do this presentation.
Good evening. For the record, Jeff Tate, Director of Community Development. Tonight's a pretty exciting moment for a couple reasons. First of all, get the privilege of introducing Claire Goodwin. Claire is the new Executive Manager of SKHHP. So Claire joined SKHHP about 6 weeks ago or so. So very new, and is tonight providing a presentation to City Council, Auburn City Council, and kind of on a road show, providing a similar presentation to all of the member municipalities of SKHHP. So Claire comes to us from the city of Tacoma, brings a wealth of experience and enthusiasm for the work that SKHHP is doing and the work of that we all have interest in the arena of affordable housing. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire in just a second to provide the presentation. But second reason that it's really exciting is that Claire gets to talk about capital investment in affordable housing. And we've been talking about this for a bunch of years. So this is the first presentation that Skip's able to provide talking about actual investment in actual affordable housing, real life affordable housing. So that's another reason why tonight's really exciting. So turn it over to Claire.
Thank you, Jeff. And good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, Mayor Backus. My name is Claire Goodwin. I am the new executive manager for SKIP, or South King Housing and Homelessness Partners is our long name. My first time here presenting to you, so thank you for the opportunity. So I'm here tonight to present the SKIP Executive Board's recommendations on the SKIP's Housing Capital Fund. There we go. All right. So just a little background. SKIP was formed in 2019 through an interlocal agreement between several city governments and King County to address the housing needs of South King County as a unified, coordinated coalition. And Auburn was a founding member and is also the administering agency for SKIP, which means I am a City of Auburn employee. So SKIP currently has 11 member jurisdictions, and they're listed on the slide. Auburn is represented by Mayor Backus, who serves as chair of the SKIP Executive Board. And by way of background on SKIP's Housing Capital Fund, in 2019, Substitute House Bill 1406 became law, allowing cities and counties to recapture a portion of Washington state sales tax when it's used to support affordable housing initiatives. You may recall that the effective sales tax rate didn't change for the consumer, and instead the tax gets credited against the state sales tax. In 2021, your City Council authorized an interlocal agreement with SKIP, which allowed the pooling of sales tax receipts received under Substitute House Bill 1406 from each participating member jurisdiction for use by SKIP in funding affordable housing projects. So this is the first of an annual process with SKIP and member jurisdictions to fund projects with these pooled resources through the SKIP Housing Capital Fund. So use of these pooled funds requires approval from each participating city council. Even though you have already contributed these funds to SKIP, your council will need to take action for us to use those funds. So this approach allows multiple cities to pool their funds for projects across South King County to maximize the creation of affordable housing overall and in each city. So SKIP opened its first Housing Capital Fund application last year in 2022. 3 projects applied for SKIP funding, and they all happen to be projects in Burien. So the SKIP Advisory Board reviewed applications and forwarded its funding recommendations to the SKIP Executive Board that reflected the policies and priorities adopted by the board. And after careful deliberation, the SKIP Executive Board concurred with the recommendations of the Advisory Board and has recommended total funding of $1,393,308 for 2 projects as described in the SKIP Executive Board funding recommendation memo dated December 16th, 2022, which was included in your packet. And next slide. Thank you. So the projects under consideration And the SKIP Executive Board's recommended funding levels for each project are listed on the slide, and I'll briefly go through each one. So first, we have a Habitat for Humanity home ownership project in Burien. Phase 1 of this project includes the construction of 23-bedroom townhouses for households earning up to 50% of the area median income, or AMI. The requested funding from SKIP is $300,000, and the same amount was recommended by the board. The special conditions include this being a secured grant with no repayment as long as affordability and target population are maintained, and the covenant is recorded to ensure affordability for at least 50 years. Second is a project from Mercy Housing Northwest, which is an 89-unit multifamily mixed income affordable rental housing development. The project proposal is to provide a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments for households with mixed incomes from 0 to 30%, 30 to 50%, and up to 60% of AMI, and anticipated set-asides at 20% for households with a disability, and a 40% set aside for households experiencing homelessness. So the requested funding from SKIP is $1,093,308, and the same amount was recommended by the board. Special conditions include being a deferred contingent forgivable loan, and the covenant is recorded to ensure affordability for at least 50 years. EcoThrive also submitted an application for a home ownership project, which includes new construction of 26 houses for households earning 30 to 50% AMI. The requested funding from SKIP was $700,000 to $1 million, and the board did not recommend funding at this time. Both the advisory board and executive board are enthusiastic about this project, but the element of readiness to use the funds and complement other fund sources informed this recommendation, and the project sponsors have been encouraged to apply during the next funding round. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide shows total amounts contributed by jurisdiction to the SKIP Housing Capital Fund, and of this total, the amounts by jurisdiction for each project. You will see the unallocated amount by jurisdiction to be used in future funding years, and that's the far right column. We are seeking authorization from City Council to allocate the two amounts listed for both of these projects under your city in alignment with the Executive Board's recommendation. And this is $63,257.27 for the Habitat for Humanity project and $230,532.27 for the Mercy Housing project. And next slide. So in conclusion, we are looking for your support to authorize the allocation of $293,789.54 from the city's contribution to the SKIP Housing Capital Fund to finance the two affordable housing projects we talked about tonight. And this is part of our requirements of the interlocal agreement that we come to you and ask for this support. So we are looking to schedule this next week at council for your consideration. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
One thing that I wanted to add real quick is, again, like I said in the beginning, it's pretty exciting to come tonight and present proposals and a request to move forward for funding affordable housing projects, real funding. And I go back to Councilmember Baggett. The last couple of years, you have been a strong voice in asking this question. You know, when it's budget time or when there have been presentations provided by SKIP in the past, you have always said, like, when are we going to see some housing? When are we going to see some investment in housing? So those questions that you've asked throughout the last couple of years ring in my head. And as we get to this point today, it's really exciting to finally come to you and say that there are projects that the pooled funds, you made that decision a few years ago to make that investment, send the funds to SKIP and allow SKIP to sort of work in that arena of getting to this point today, and here we are.
I'm really glad to hear it.
Council, any questions? Councilmember
Brown. Thank you very much, and great presentation, Claire, and appreciate the fact that not only are we engaged in this work, but the city's showing leadership, not only as having our mayor as the chair and taking on the administrative tasks. And look, you know, I know when it comes to the alphabet, A comes before B. Not that we should take full advantage of our leadership role, maybe, or should we? I'm just curious, how does the board approach prioritizing these various investments? And when could we anticipate investments in Auburn's community as well?
Good question. So, a deeper question I'm hearing you ask is, why are all the projects in Burien? And so I want to.
Friends up there, you know.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So to answer that part first, which I think will help inform the other part of your question, Burien has an affordable housing demonstration program that was going on when these projects applied, meaning they had reduced some of the barriers to development of these projects, and that's a leading reason why these folks applied, and why they were all located in Burien. So, and this was also the first round of funding. So I think as we move forward, even this year and next, as the word gets out that SKIP is pooling these resources and we have this funding available, reaching out to folks to let them know that we're here and doing that. And I think, as much as, yourself and the council can help in that outreach when we get to that time, to make sure that the word is out about this opportunity would be really helpful. And then to your second question about prioritization, the board has adopted guidelines for how they would prioritize projects, and there's a lot of information in there, but it's permanent supportive housing, racial equities is considered. There's workforce housing. So all projects need to be, I believe it's under serving 60% AMI and under. So those are the sorts of criteria that we're working with and the board uses. Also through the process, the advisory board takes the first kind of look at who applied and what their recommendations are for which projects to select and at what funding levels. And then they transmit that to the executive board for their final recommendation. And then part of our process in the interlocal agreement is now we go to all the city councils and we ask for your support to then use the funds that each city has already contributed to SKIP. So it's a long process.
Okay. If I might just, so when will be the next round, or did you say?
I didn't say, and I would anticipate it being in the fall.
All right, thank you, Clint.
One of the things that also is a requirement is whichever city the project is in must agree that it's okay to have that project in their city prior to any of the board action taking place.
Sounds good.
But really exciting because, as most of you probably remember, when SKIP was formed a few years ago, we never anticipated that we would be this quickly funding any capital projects. And then Substitute House Bill 1406 came along and gave us an opportunity to utilize that funding for this very reason. And there are some other cities that are members of SKIP that also have the $1590. And that's the 1/10 of 1% sales tax that the county chose to undertake. But there were a few cities prior to the county voting for that decided to implement that 1/10 of 1% sales tax for their own city. Some of them have said that they will contribute those dollars to skip. Others are still trying to determine what they're going to do with that funding. But we were not a city that chose to take action and implement 0.1% on our own and let the county do that instead. And I also just wanted to say what a great job Claire is doing so quickly into this process and coming to all of the city councils, the member city councils to do this presentation. She's catching on very quickly. One of the reasons that I was so excited to have her come and join us is she has such a great background and working with councils as well. So we are very fortunate that Claire is the executive manager for SKIP, and I look forward to a long relationship.
Councilmember Malinga, did you still have a question?
No, I had the same question. My question is more on the process, and I think you did a good job explaining that, so thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Baggett?
Thank you, Chair. Claire, I think I know the answer to this question, but those initial funds, what will they really be used for those two projects?
So those funds are part of the financing overall project. So the $300,000 is part of, for the Habitat for Humanity project, is just a part of how Habitat's gonna fund the entire phase 1 of their project, which is the low-income, affordable, low-income homeownership project. So
Are they used primarily initially for the design of these projects?
So they are breaking ground shortly. So it is for the entire project cost. It's contributing to that. So the $300,000 is a part of it's about just over $8 million for the entire project.
I didn't think we were going to be able to fund the whole project, which is that amount of money. But I thought maybe the initial cost might be for design or site preparation.
It's the way they've described they're all in project costs.
Deputy Mayor?
Claire, welcome. You did a great presentation. Following up on Councilmember Baggett's question, when you said $8 million, our portion is only $300,000. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I would say Skip's portion.
Skip's portion. Okay. And the rest is coming from the different entities that are involved in it?
Yeah, so could you pull up the memo for me?
The skip memo?
Okay, let me see. I think I want to give you good information. All right. The Habitat project, yeah, so they are receiving $1.2 million from the State Housing Trust Fund. They're receiving $1.5 million from the King County Home, and Fund for Humanity is a developer. They're contributing $4.8 million, and then about $600,000 from the CHIP program.
Okay.
And then there's also in your memo a list of the development budget. So it's broken out by land acquisition, soft cost, development costs, and other development costs. So maybe a more detailed answer to your question.
I think it's page 60 of your packet.
And that same information is also available for the other project as well. It lists out who's contributing, and for the larger project, the Mercy Housing project, they have I would say a more diverse portfolio of funders. From they're getting the LIHTC, the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, from the federal government. They're getting an Amazon grant and some other funding sources. So
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. It was great. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rakes. If we don't have anything else going on, we have come to the end of our council study session, and this meeting is now adjourned.